With me now is John Hudson. He is National Head Agriculture at Nedbank. Thank you so much for your time. And let's just start with whether, John, financiers are actually really behind farmers when it comes to climate change.
Yeah, thank you for having me. The short answer is yes, very, very much so, I think, because climate change is not only affecting the farmers, but it's also affecting the bank. So if you look at our farming client base, they make up a fair proportion of our lending, and therefore it makes absolute sense for the bank to focus on this. And what I can say is that I think climate change is probably the biggest risk facing farmers going forward. We do have these short-term hiccups, the pandemic, and you could argue sometimes there's like a flood, for example, which makes us focus short-term, but longer-term, I think climate change is such a big issue, and farmers need to tackle that. And as banks, we need to help them.
Can you talk to me about some of the innovative ways that Nedbank is helping to fund farmers when it comes to the transition that they need to make to become climate ready?
Yeah, I think farmers tend to lend a lot of money, so that's often the cornerstone of their business is lending. And I think through the bank, through lending, we can drive positive change, and certainly that positive change talks to combating climate change going forward. So much of our support is really about knowing the farmer, understanding his business, because there are different solutions for different farmers. It doesn't mean that sort of renewable energy will apply to all farmers, for example. So I think it's really important for us to understand the client's business first. Is it energy? Is it water? Is it soil health? Is it biodiversity, for example? So there's a lot of aspects that come into play, and all of these have an impact on business risk, of course. And I think if you're addressing business risk, that's where you link up the dots with the farmer. And then the funding package that sits behind it is really to support that. It's to look at, okay, renewable energy. Is it a security of supply? Is it a cost issue, for example? And we have funding. We have funding for whether it's solar panels, water turbines, et cetera. And our farmers are taking these up. We have really good examples of farmers that are taking up technology. They're looking at energy. We are bringing partners to the game as well. So whether it's home energy, which really offers our clients an end-to-end one-stop shop, if you want to call it that. So home energy will come and do this assessment, take the farmers through the process, look at the best quote, and then say to the bank, okay, let's fund that. And that's a good, I think a really good partnership, if you want to put it that way.
So John, everyone here is talking about here being COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Everyone is focusing on adaptation and how important specifically for Africa adaptation is. Can you perhaps just take a step back and for the layperson explain what it means when we ask farmers to adapt to climate change?
Well, quite honestly, farmers have been really good at being agile, adaptive, because over time they face numerous challenges, not only climate change, but for example, farmers are probably closest to the coalface, if you want to call it that, when we talk about climate change. They are a contributor on one hand, but they're also a recipient of climate change as well. But I've seen this over time because farmers' margins have been squeezed. There's a continual cost price squeeze, and farmers have had to take up new technology and had to be agile to stay in the game and be competitive. The other thing is that many of our buyers, because we actually export more than 50% of what we produce in this country, and therefore that means buyers are often outside South Africa, and many buyers are pushing back, I suppose, quite rightly so, to say, well, what are your sustainability credentials? And therefore, for farmers, it's a mixture. Some of them do it for their own purposes, sure, they want to save the planet. Some of them do it because of business risk and because market really dictates that. So what you then find, if you get a combination of the two, where someone sees it for all the right reasons, but is also doing it for good business reasons, you have a very good matchup. The adaptability then it's just so much clearer, for a farmer who then looks at his business and takes a long-term view, because bearing in mind, we are custodians of the land, or the farmers are the custodians of the land. We really need them to work with us, and we need to support them in doing that. So that, being agile, adaptive, I think is part of a farmer's nature, to be honest. I mean, that's what they do day in and day out. They face challenges. And by the way, I think that's one of the reasons why our farming sector is so strong and so competitive on a world stage. We tend to do business with very little support, very little safety nets, and that makes us very sharp as a farming sector. So lots to be proud of, and lots for the banks to do in supporting our farmers in dealing with climate change going forward.
John, on the first day of COP27, I spoke to Theo Diaga, the former president of the World Farmers Organization, and he came up with what I believe is a great term to explain the position that farmers are in right now, in that they need to produce more with less on less. Do you think he summed it up correctly?
Oh, 100%. Doing more with less is what farmers do, and precision agriculture has really taken on a new meaning, because that means exactly that. The efficiency that they bring to their businesses now is just outstanding. So whether you're talking about water, energy, fertilizer applications, whatever it is, the efficiency is what's keeping them in the game, because of that cost price squeeze that I was talking about. So many farmers have got bigger as part of that. So they've got more efficient and they've got bigger. But then that does allow them to bring new technology to the table, and to access new technology. So, many of our farming businesses are very sophisticated, they really are. And they're dealing with a challenging macro. It's not easy to be a farmer on many fronts. So yes, doing more with less is spot on.
John, thank you so much for your time and for joining us here at COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on our discussion platform. I've been chatting to John Hudson, National Head Agriculture at Nedbank.